Hello bookworms! Today I'm gonna do my June wrap up. So I finally got back into the groove of reading. I had a much better reading month in June, but all of the reading that I did was in the latter half of the month, so from like June 19th until the end of June. I managed to finish 8 books between June 19th and June 30th, and I've been trying to continue that reading mojo off into July, and that will hopefully last for this full month as well. So I'm really pleased that I finally played a little bit of catch up and I got to read some books that I was really excited to get to, so I will let you guys know what those are. So the first book that I read was The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes by Suzanne Collins. This is the Hunger Games prequel, and I had kind of mixed feelings on this one. I liked seeing all of the connections between the Hunger Games of the original trilogy and like how it evolved into those games from the games that we see in this book. But overall, I didn't love it. I didn't like reading from Snow's perspective because I just don't like him as a character. I just didn't feel like it was a necessary addition to the Hunger Games like lore. Then I read The Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants by Anne Brashares. This is the first book in the Sisterhood series, so I think everyone knows what this is about, but I buddy read this with my friends Rachel and Alexa. We were reading it as part of like a nostalgic buddy reread. All of us read this so many years ago. Like the last time that I read it, I was in high school, so it was like 15 years ago, which is quite a long time, and I loved it back then, so I really wanted to see what I would think now. Unfortunately, it didn't really hold up for me, but I'm curious to see how I'm going to feel as I continue reading because I do remember that the books get better. Then I read You Say It First by Katie Cotugno. This is Katie's newest book. It's a contemporary and it's following 2 main characters. It's actually, I think it's her first book that's in dual perspective. Usually we just get the female's point of view, but in this one we also got the point of view of Colby, who is a guy that Meg ends up calling one night from her job. She works at a nonprofit organization which helps people to register to vote. The 2 of them end up having kind of a strange conversation, and then they end up keeping in touch and continuing to talk, and they both come from such different lives and such different areas in the country that they have very different views on things, and they end up really challenging one another. So that part of it was really inspiring, but I personally didn't think that the relationship was something that I was like totally on board for, but I still really enjoyed the book. Then I read Shuri by Nick Stone. This is a novel all about Shuri from Black Panther. She is T'Challa's sister, and she is like incredible when it comes to technology. I loved her in the film, so I was really excited to read this book, and I thought it was really fun. This is an upper middle grade novel, so it's not quite YA, but I personally think it read more YA as you continued reading. Like the beginning was a little bit young, but then it kind of aged up, if that makes sense. And I really liked the themes that it touched upon between friendship and responsibility, and Shuri basically like doesn't really care about her responsibilities as a princess. She's much more worried about all of the technology stuff going on, and in this book in particular she is trying to figure out the mystery of what's going on with the heart-shaped herb that is used to like turn the person who's Black Panther into Black Panther, like give them those special abilities, because it seems to be dying out, but no one else seems very concerned with it. So Shuri takes it upon herself to investigate and travel, and there are some Marvel cameos in here that I really enjoyed. So yeah, overall this one was really good. Then I read Beach Read by Emily Henry. This was one of my most anticipated books of 2020. It's an adult romance, and it's following 2 characters who are kind of like enemies. They end up living right next door to each other in this small coastal town called North Bear Shores just for the summer season. Both of them are struggling with personal issues which are kind of hindering their ability to write. They're both authors. So January, she normally writes romance, and Gus, he normally writes literary fiction. So they end up coming up with a challenge where Gus is going to have to write a romance novel and January is going to have to write a literary fiction novel, and whoever can sell their novel first wins, and the other person will have to blurb them and recommend their book in interviews and all that kind of stuff. And it was just delightful. I really, really loved this romance. It's definitely a new all-time favorite for me. Then I read The Guest List by Lucy Foley, and I loved this book. This is a mystery thriller novel. It's not really super thrilling and action-packed. It reads more like a contemporary with a kind of murder mystery going on. It follows a group of people who are on this like very remote Irish island for a wedding. I just found it fascinating. None of these people are like good people, although there are some of them that I definitely sympathized with. There were 2 characters that I liked, and then the rest of them I was like, I can't with these people, but they were still fascinating to read because they were just very entertaining. So on this one, all we know is that the night of the wedding, there is a murder that occurs. So someone gets murdered, but we don't know who it is and we don't know who the murderer is. So in the beginning, we start out on the wedding night, and then the rest of the novel is told through like flashbacks, and there's alternating perspectives. So, or not really flashbacks, it's just like earlier that day. So then it'll follow someone's perspective like leading up to the events. There are chapters interspersed where we do flash forward back to the wedding night and what's going on in present time. So it was really fascinating. Oh, but there are a whole lot of trigger warnings for this book, so just be warned. You should probably like look them up on Goodreads if you're curious about them. But I found this fascinating. I really loved it. And I also noticed that this is only the 2nd thriller that I read in 2020, which is crazy because I used to read so many thrillers, and I don't know what happened. I just kind of like haven't really been reading them, but I so enjoyed this one. So please let me know thriller recommendations because I am making it a priority to read more of them this year. I just ordered The 7 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle, so I'm excited to get to that one, but let me know if you have any others. Oh, and the Riley Sager books, I'm all on top of those as well. Then I read The Truth Project by Dante Medema. This is a YA contemporary novel that is told in verse, and it's also told through like text messages and emails. It was super hard hitting and so incredibly beautifully written, like you don't even know. It was gorgeous. We're following a girl who is doing her senior thesis project, and she takes a genealogy test in an effort to try to discover more about herself. And the book touches a lot upon nature versus nurture, which is something that I've always found to be super interesting. So when she gets the results of her test, she finds out that her father is not actually her biological father. Her biological father is a musician from Seattle, whereas her father that she's grown up with is a professor who's super into Shakespeare, and she has 2 sisters as well, and she's just always felt kind of like the odd one out and like she doesn't totally fit in. So she's grappling with the fact that she's only half related to these people, and she's wondering if that is the piece that was kind of always missing, but it's a huge secret and her dad doesn't know that he's not her biological father. So it's like, and she's the middle child too. So there's a lot going on. It's very messy, but it's so well written and so beautiful. I was crying so much when I was reading this. It was so great. And I really loved the way that it tied up at the ending. Just everything about it was amazing. I am also actually going to be doing a giveaway for this book, so if you are interested in winning a copy, you can head over to my Instagram and the rules for entering will be there. And then the final book that I read in June is Say Yes Summer by Lindsay Roth Cooley, and I liked this book. I thought it was a really fun contemporary. It's just like a light summer read. It's following a girl who always was very into her studies throughout all of high school, and then the summer before she's going to be heading off to college, she finds this book in her room. Is kind of ridiculous and cheesy and super outdated. It's like from the 80s, but it's this doctor that is recommending people to say yes to everything in their lives. So she decides to make that her goal for the summer, where everything that she would normally say no to, she's now going to be saying yes to. She gets herself into some situations, but it's fun to watch somebody who is quieter and keeps themselves on the outside break their shell and get to experience more. So I appreciated it for that. There was a situation that she did not handle well at all, and I get that it's because she's young and inexperienced, but I just didn't love that portion of it. The book is really short, so I kind of wanted more. I felt like it could have gone deeper into some things and been like another 50 to 75-ish pages, but I did really enjoy it while I was reading it. I felt like the dialogue seemed really authentic. I liked our main character, Rachel, so it was fun to follow her. It's just not a new favorite, but I would still recommend checking it out if you're interested. So those are the 8 books that I ended up reading in June. Then moving on to TV, I watched so much great TV this month, so I'm gonna start off by talking about Love, Victor season 1, which came to Hulu. As you guys know, I love Becky Albertalli and I've loved all of the books in the Creekwood series, so I was very much looking forward to Love, Victor. I'm also really glad that they decided to put Love, Victor on Hulu Hulu instead of Disney Plus because I would not want them to have changed anything that happened in the series. I thought it was just excellent. We're following a guy in high school named Victor who just moves to Creekwood with his family. He's trying to figure out his identity and kind of come to terms with who he is versus who his family thinks that he is. And it was really heartwarming. So it was a lot heavier than I was expecting. I wasn't expecting the whole situation with the parents. There was like a big subplot with the parents that I just didn't think would have been as big going into it. And then I also really liked Mia, who is the girl that Victor kind of starts dating in the beginning. She was so awesome, and Victor's best friend I mean, they do end up getting there, but he's so funny. He was definitely one of my favorite characters on the show, and there is one episode that I was just dying over. It was like the best episode ever. I'm so glad that we got that. I don't want to say what it is because I don't want to spoil it for anyone who hasn't had the opportunity to watch it yet. I really loved it. The show ended kind of on a cliffhanger though, and I was like, why end it here? So I'm very much looking forward to whenever we get a second season. This had better get renewed. Then I watched Never Have I Ever season 1 on Netflix, and I also really enjoyed this. This is like a sitcom following a girl named Davy and her two best friends. So it was really funny because I was just in kind of like a mood and I was like, I just need something funny to watch. So Andrew was like, well, what do you want to watch? And I was like, I don't know. And then I was like, oh, you know what? I've heard about the show Never Have I Ever. I think it's supposed to be really funny, so we should give it a shot. And he was like, okay, fine. So I put it on, and then within the first like 3 minutes of the episode, her dad dies and then her legs just stop working, and he's like, oh yes, this is hilarious, thank you for choosing it. And I was like, I swear I heard this was funny, but then it ends up being really funny, and I felt like it was really in touch with today's society. I think it's written by Mindy Kaling, so that should be enough of a reason to watch it. She's like amazing. So I super loved the show. It's definitely like a new favorite for me. I'm so excited they just announced that it got picked up for season 2. But so in the show, we're basically following Davy, who decides that she's kind of done being a nerd and she wants to get a boyfriend, and she comes up with this plan for her and her two best friends to all get boyfriends. One of her friends is clearly not into boys but is not openly out yet and is still kind of coming to terms with who she is. Davy makes some really bad choices, but they do seem like choices that teenagers would make. Her other best friend Eleanor has a whole plot going on with her mom, and I loved the whole thing. Like, I was laughing the whole time. I really like the situation with Davy's cousin who, I don't know if I said it, but Davy's Indian and she lives at home with her mom and her cousin who is staying with them and studying to become a doctor. While she's there, the mom and her parents that live in India have set up an arranged marriage for Davy's cousin, and she's basically like the perfect kind of Indian daughter, so she doesn't want to disappoint her parents, but you can tell that she's like not into the idea of having an arranged marriage. So I really liked her plotline. I thought Camilla was very funny. She was great. I especially loved the one episode with her television watching habits. But yeah, this was on Netflix. There were like 30-minute episodes, like 20 to 30-minute episodes, so I ended up watching all of these in like 2 days and highly recommend. Then Andrew and I watched DuckTales season 1 and season 2, which are on Disney Plus, and this was amazing. So we're following Huey, Dewey, and Louie when they go to live with Scrooge McDuck, and the voice of Scrooge is David Tennant, so obviously we were predestined to love this show. And then there's also some other like super excellent voices. So we have Ben Schwartz does one of the voices, Danny Pudi, who was from Community, and Bobby Moynihan from Saturday Night Live. And they just have such a great dynamic, and they really did such an excellent job with the show. And there were so many nods to DuckTales properties of the past. So Andrew really enjoyed all of those. He definitely was a bigger DuckTales fan than I was like when he was younger. So he picked up on a lot of things and then explained them to me, and then I appreciated them too. But I just thought the whole thing was so well done. I really liked the story. The show made me cry. Like, that's how good that it is. But I just loved it so much. It was full of adventure. It was so funny. And the characters are so lovable. And I'm really looking forward to Disney Plus adding season 3 to the app. I definitely need to know what's going to happen next. Then we finally watched Jane the Virgin season 6, which is the final season of the show. Andrew and I basically binged seasons 1 through 5 a couple of years ago when it was on Netflix. I don't know if it had just come to Netflix or what, but we just immediately fell in love with the show and watched the whole thing through. I really liked the way that the show wrapped up. There were some things that were a bit on the cheesy side, but that's to be expected because it was a happy show. Well, it was a mostly happy show. There's obviously a ton of drama since it's based on telenovelas. I really liked the character arcs of like everyone from season 1 to season 6. You just never expect any of them to be in the position that they were in. I am pleased with who Jane ended up with, and I love Petra. She's like one of my favorite characters. And I also really loved, well, actually my actual favorite character is Rogelio. He is hilarious, and then Petra is like a very close second. I really liked the progression of events. So Jane and Xiomara, her mother, and her grandmother Alba, all 3 of them are like the center and the heart of the show. So it's about like these 3 women more than anything, even though it explores like romantic relationships and Jane's relationship with her child and then friendship and like just so good. I really love this series, and I'm so glad that it ended on a good note. It's definitely something that I would rewatch. It gets crazy, like there are definitely crazy storylines, but I still love it. Then we watched Gallery, which is another show on Disney Plus, and this is all about the making of the Mandalorian show. I love the Mandalorian, so I was really excited to watch this, and I thought it was really fascinating. If they do more shows like this, I would totally be on board to watch them. I thought the technology was so groundbreaking that they used in the making of the Mandalorian that it just made hearing all of the behind the scenes stuff like super fascinating. We got to hear from Jon Favreau and Kathleen Kennedy, and then all of the directors of the different episodes of The Mandalorian, because they had a different person direct each one. So there was like a really good mix of people, and it's basically like a round table format. So they're all just having a conversation with one another, but then there are some like side interviews with the different actors within the series and people that worked on special effects and technology and sound, and it was just really excellent, and it was really fun to get insight into the making of things. My favorite episode of The Mandalorian was the final episode, which was directed by Taika Waititi, so it was really fun to hear his take on things. And of course, it was excellent to see Baby Yoda, because Baby Yoda is the cutest. So yeah, overall, we just really enjoyed the show. And then we watched about half of season 1 of Star Trek: The Next Generation, but we're still watching it, so I will definitely touch upon that in my next month's video, because we'll at least have 1 season completed. Then moving on to movies. So we actually continued on our Marvel rewatch, and I watched more movies this month than we did last month. So we kicked things off with Thor 2: The Dark World, and I have to say, I remember loving this movie when I saw it in theaters, but this time around, as part of our rewatch, I was like not really feeling it. It was okay. I don't know, I guess I had memories of it being so much better, and it just really didn't hold up for me. Maybe having seen the rest of the first major story arc of the Avengers play out, it just doesn't hold up as much as a lot of the other ones. So it was fine, but I really just didn't enjoy it as much as I thought I was going to, which was kind of sad. Then actually a non-Marvel movie, we watched The Lovebirds on Netflix, and this was so much fun. It followed 2 characters who were dating and like totally in love with each other, and then we flash forward 4 years and they're fighting and they end up breaking up in the car on the way to a dinner party. Then they end up becoming suspects in a murder case. So the 2 of them spend the night on the run trying to prove their innocence and trying to find the person who actually did murder this person that they're being accused of murdering. And it was so entertaining and so funny to watch these characters like get into all of these crazy situations and dangerous situations and have to try to like get out of them. And oh my gosh, so good, so funny. And this was another one where I felt like everything wrapped up like perfectly. It was so funny. Then moving on, we watched Captain America: Winter Soldier. This was actually only my second time seeing Winter Soldier. I saw it it in theaters with Andrew. It was the first Marvel movie that we saw together in theaters when we were dating, and we had just watched it that one time and then we never watched it again, which is weird because it's one that both of us really loved. This one definitely did hold up upon rewatch. It was really exciting. I was really glad that even though it was a Captain America movie, we also got more of the other characters in it. So we got Black Widow, we got Falcon, and we also got to kind of know the Winter Soldier a little bit. But whereas in the past, a lot of the films were more self-contained and really just focused on the one title character, I liked that this one was more encompassing, and it just gave you a wider scope of the Marvel universe and then the inner workings of S.H.I.E.L.D., which I always found really fascinating. It's more like an espionage type film than a superhero film. So this one definitely did hold up for me. And then immediately upon finishing, I convinced Andrew to also watch Guardians of the Galaxy because that one has always been one of my favorites. And yeah, I was like, let's watch Guardians of the Galaxy. And you were like, right now? You were like, I usually don't watch 2 movies in a row.
Oh, that was why. Okay. I don't need much coercion to watch that movie. But I remember now.
Yeah. So immediately upon finishing, we ended up watching Guardians of the Galaxy, and this one definitely 100% held up. This one is still one of my favorite movies within the Marvel universe. I remember, like, back in the day, loving the Guardians of the Galaxy comics, and then once it was announced that we were getting a Guardians of the Galaxy film, I just remember being, like, flabbergasted that I would ever get to see Rocket Raccoon in theaters, like in a movie. That's just something that I never imagined happening in my lifetime. And yeah, it was amazing. I really like the lovable band of misfits vibe that we get from all of the Guardians and how they come together and work with each other even though they're all so different and from such different backgrounds. I think all of them bring something really important to the table and they're just delightful. And I really like James Gunn's humor. I find the whole movie to just be so funny and so entertaining. Then we watched Avengers Age of Ultron, and this is one that I remember not loving that much, but upon rewatch, I really enjoyed. I was very surprised, but I think part of it is that I am a huge fan of the twins, so it was really exciting to get that introduction to Wanda and Pietro and to see them coming to terms with the fact that even though they blame Tony for everything that happened in their past, they realize that Ultron is not the solution and end up flipping to the Avengers. I love the movie for just for the fact that we get Wanda, and I also really like the storyline with Hawkeye, and the whole thing just really was so much better than I remembered. I don't know why I thought this one was a little bit of a letdown when I had seen it originally, because this time around I loved it. And then the final movie that we watched is The Princess and the Frog. We watched this one on Disney Plus. I had actually never seen The Princess and the Frog, so this was my first time watching it, and I really enjoyed it. I thought it was really cute. I really liked that it took place in like the 20s in New Orleans. I thought that was such a great atmosphere, and it's an area that is so rich in culture, so it was really fun to see that explored on screen. I really liked the story of it too. Tiana is amazing, and the whole time that we were watching it, I really wanted to get vignettes. Now, the only Disney movie, like Disney princess movie that I haven't seen yet is Brave, so I need to watch that one, and then I will be like totally caught up on Disney princess films. I don't know how I didn't see them. I kind of like went through a period where I wasn't really going to movies at movie theaters, and that's happening once again, but not by choice. But yeah, I ended up really liking it. I really liked the songs. I really liked the fact that they were dealing with like voodoo magic. It was very much a storyline that I personally enjoyed. I love things with kind of darkish magic. Then games, I will just say I played Animal Crossing once again. I know you're all very surprised, but that definitely took up a lot of my month. And we also started playing Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze, which we bought for the Switch. I think it was a Wii game, and now I just like bought a version for the Switch, but that was fun. We actually have to get back to that, and that's all I'm gonna say for games. We didn't, besides Animal Crossing, didn't have too much in the gaming department this month. And then as far as events go, so I'm obviously still confined to my apartment apartment. I have not really gone out at all, with the exception of going food shopping 5 times since March. Like, that's it. I literally do not leave my apartment for anything. My dad actually drove into New York City and picked Andrew and I up and took us to Long Island for the weekend, and finally got to see my parents and my brother, and it was just so nice to like be with family and to get to see my mom, because I know I mentioned in my May video, but my mom was in the hospital for a lot of May, and then she went home, and then she had to go back to the hospital in June, and with the virus, the hospital did not allow visitors, so it was really hard to like have her there by herself and to not be able to go and see her and keep her company. But I'm glad that she's home now and she seems to be doing better, and it was just really nice to like actually see her in person, because the last time that I had actually like spent time with my parents was in February, when I took a day off of work and I went to one of my mom's doctor's appointments with my mom and my dad. It was just like good to finally get to see them, because as you guys know, there's a lot going on with my family, with my mom's health, and that's been the most challenging thing of quarantine, has been like not being able to see my family when there's like a lot going on. So it was nice. It was really nice to get a weekend away, and you can't really tell in this outfit, but I got a horrible sunburn. I put suntan lotion all over myself before we sat outside in my parents' backyard, which also amazing to be outdoors. It was like, oh, so necessary. We are so just in this apartment for months and months and months now that just being outdoors was like a gift. So I was just like soaking up the sun, and I felt like it was giving me life to just lay there in a peaceful backyard. Then a virtual event that I attended is Thor had TorCon, so there were a couple of different panels that you could sign up for to watch, and the one that I was like most looking forward to, and I definitely made the priority of being there, was the conversation between Victoria Schwab and Neil Gaiman, who are 2 of my favorite authors in the world, and I love that the 2 of them are like friendly and they actually like do stuff together now. So I was like, this is like a dream come true, getting to see the 2 of them have a conversation. I really enjoyed it. I can listen to both of them just talk for the entire day and I will be so satisfied. I think both of them are so insightful and they're such masters of their craft. They have so much valuable insight to offer, and literally just hearing them talk about anything makes me happy. So I was very excited to attend that as well. Have not gone anywhere physically because we're still here. Things in New York are starting to open up. I think we're in phase 2 or phase 3 right now of reopening, but Andrew and I are both still working from home, and we are doing our part to not go out if it's not something that's absolutely necessary. Like, we don't even go out to take walks or anything. We are just home unless we need groceries, and even that we kind of push as long as we possibly can. So yeah, that was June. That was probably a really long wrap up because I feel like we watched a lot, and I also talked about books differently and more than I have in past videos, but I hope that you guys enjoyed it. This is gonna be a lot for me to edit. Let me know your favorite book that you read in June, and one of your favorite things that you either like attended online or purchased or read, or you know, anything. Just tell me like a June favorite. That's all that I have for this video, so I will see you guys soon in a new one. Bye!